Right, ladies and gents, welcome to today's lesson on writing chord sequences. Today we're going to revise and identify chords, major and minor. We're going to identify what a chord sequence is, and we're going to use the circle of fifths to compose a chord sequence for a song. So today you will need a pen and paper and your workbook if you have it. So we're going to start on revising chords. So a chord is two or more notes usually played at the same time. All music is created using chords. So remember that a chord is usually three, but it can technically be two. When played together, they can sound different. And at Key Stage 3, we look at two different types of chords, major and minor. And as a general rule, the major chords sound happy and the minor chords sound sad. So here's an example of a major chord. Let's turn that up. And here's an example of a minor chord. Major, minor, major, minor. Okay. So even though they sound different, they do actually have quite a lot in common. And that's what we're going to have a look at today. So, quick little test. You're going to tell me whether these chords are major or minor. So here we go. Here we go, separately and then together. That one was major. How about this one? Separately and together. That one's supposed to say minor. Whoops, that one was minor that I played. Ignore the major thing that it says there. Number 3, here we go. Minor. So far we've got major, minor, minor. Ignore that major, it must have been a typo. Number 4. Here we go. Major. And then our last one. Minor. So well done. So lots of you, up until this point, will have used the strategy which we've used in class, which is play one, miss one, play one, miss one, play one. And that helps us to a certain extent. But in order to actually be able to play these major and minor chords successfully without making mistakes, we have to create a triad. Now, a triad is 3 notes, tri meaning 3, add meaning adding, and in music, it means 3 notes played at the same time. Each triad is made up of what we call the root, which is the home note, so the tonic, the root, the third, and the fifth. And if you notice on the top right, they're all stacked on top of each other. And in my opinion, I remember that those chords look like a note sandwich. So a triad will often look like a note sandwich where they're all stacked on top of each other. So when playing chords, so far we've used the play one, miss one, play one strategy, which would mean that if, for example, in C major, we've got C and then E and then G, and then that we know that that's a C major chord. It sounds like this. Okay, C, E, G. But that will only get us so far. It works for other chords like a G major chord, it works for an F chord. But then if we want to try and play, for example, an E major chord, it doesn't actually work. And this is how we can break that. So there are 2 rules which we're going to use. The first rule is, in a major chord, the third is always 4 semitones up from the root. So if, for example, I wanted to create a D major chord, I go to my root, which is D. Then I need to count up, so I'm counting right, that's up, 4 semitones. Now remember, a semitone is a half step. So that means, for example, from D to D sharp, this is a semitone. So I need to go 4 semitones up. So I've done 1, 2 semitones, 3 semitones, 4 semitones. That means my third is an F sharp. And if I play that, here is the D, Here's the F sharp. That's my third. Now to find the fifth, we use rule 2. In a major chord, the fifth is always 3 semitones up from the third. This is what we've done so far. We've chosen our root, D. We've gone up our 4 semitones to the third. Now from that third, I need to count up 3 semitones to find my fifth. 1, 2, 3, which means that A is my fifth. So if I play them separately, then together, D, F sharp, A. I have a major chord. And these rules can help you create any type of major chord, no matter what note you choose. So long as you follow those 2 rules, you will always create a major chord. So to practice, you guys are going to use rule 1 and rule 2 to try and work out the notes in a G major chord, a B flat chord, D major chord, E major chord, A major chord. Now you need to spend 5 minutes on this. So to keep this up on the board, you need to pause now and work them out. Once you've finished working them out, you can then press play. So here are the answers. So for G major, I start with G because it's my root. I move up 4 semitones, G sharp, A sharp, B would be my third. From B, I move up 3 semitones, so C, C sharp, and D. So my answer for G major is G, B, D. B flat major, D major, E major, A major. Pause it so you can mark your work. And we're going to move on to minor chords. So for a minor chord, only one thing changes, and that's the third. The easiest way to remember how to construct a minor chord is by using our prior knowledge. So we actually, to work out a minor chord, I'm going to start with our major chord, and then we're just going to change the third. So the major chords, this is what we've done. So we've worked out that the third is always 4 semitones up, the fifth is always 3 semitones up from the third. But remember, it's that third that we need to change. So if I was creating a C major chord, these are my notes in the C major chord. And at the moment, that's a major chord. If I play C, E, and G. But to make a major chord into a minor chord, we flatten the third. This means we move it down 1 semitone. So my E at the moment, to make this a C minor chord, I start with C, and then I actually move that E down 1. So it now becomes an E flat, and then my G stays the same. And now it's now a minor chord. So you can do that to convert any chord. So if I start with F major, F, A, C, all I do is I move that A down and it's an A flat instead of an A minor. If I start with an E chord, an E major chord, and I want to make it minor, a major chord includes E, G sharp, and B. So my third is G sharp. If I move it down, it needs to go to G. So my E minor chord is E, G, B. Take a few seconds to just practice moving your major chords to minor. So just changing that, flattening that third. Just have a go at that and maybe go back and try and convert your major chords into minor chords. So now, guys, we're going to look at something called the circle of fifths. So for those of you that are doing GCSE music, this is really essential when we're analysing music, but it's also really good from a composition point of view. And the circle of fifths does many things. But the first things that we need to realise is that there are 2 sides to this circle. So we've got the side on the left, which is mostly flats. So keys with flat key signatures. And then on the right-hand side, we have keys which have sharps. Another thing which the circle of fifths tells us is what the primary chords are and it tells us how closely related each of these keys are. So when I mean keys, I mean a key signature, and we'll get into that in a minute. So the circle of fifths helps us understand key signatures. Key signature is something that is at the very beginning of a piece of music. You'll often see, you'll see the treble clef and you'll see your time signature or whatever, but also you might see some odd sharps or some flats just before the music starts, and that's a key signature. And those key signatures are there as basically a shorthand for musicians, so we can see that certain notes are flattened throughout the piece of music. Essentially, it means that we don't have to keep writing in individual sharps and flats throughout a piece of music. It's just a bit of shorthand for us, so we know what key we're in and we know what notes to play. The circle of fifths also tells us how different keys are related. So the notes, the keys even, that are closest together are closely related and will often sound good one after the other. The circle of fifths can also tell us how a piece of music is composed. So it helps with analysing music. It helps us with realising why a composer might have chosen one key, not another. It also lets us identify common chord progressions and sequences, and it helps us see how major and minor chords are related. So we're going to use the circle of fifths to compose a chord sequence. Now, a chord sequence is a series of chords played consecutively. They're often played in a particular order. So if you think back to year 8 when you guys did blues, so year 8 currently at the moment are doing blues. If you think back to that time, you did the chord sequence, the 12-bar blues chord sequence, which sounded like this. Now that's a chord sequence. Some songs have the same chords throughout, and some have different sequences for each section. So for example, your verse chord progression might use the same chords just in a different order, and your chorus may have the same chords in a different order. So depending on the section, they might have a particular set of chords, a particular chord sequence. Now, to create a really successful chord progression, we need to use the following strategy, and I call it the neighbours strategy. And the reason why I call it that is that I like to think of music as always having a home. So when I'm playing a piece of music, I always think of the home key. And for people that are wanting to go on to music theory, we call the home key the tonic. And we start with the tonic or the home key, and I call it home because that's an easy way of remembering it. It's because we always go back to it, and it's what the whole piece is based around, that one chord. So I wanted to choose a key. So I want to choose C. C is what I've chosen as my home key. I'm now going to use the neighbour strategy to help me find the closely related keys which are likely to sound good and successful after C major. So I'm going to go next door, and by next door I mean I'm going to go to G, so I'll go just to the right, then I'm just going to go to the left, and then I'm going to go across the street. So we've got C major is our home key. I go right or left, so I'll go to next door, G and F major. I go across the street to A minor. You'll notice that all of the minor keys are opposite a major. That's because every major key has what we call a relative minor. It means that they share similar features, and normally those features are a key signature. So I'm going to just use those chords. I'm just going to play them in any order. I'm going to start with C and put the rest in a different order. I'm going to see how they sound. So here we go. I'm just going to play them C major, A minor, G, and then F. So here we go. Okay, and I could actually put that in a different rhythm. That begins to sound quite good. I could actually put them in a completely different order. So now I'm going to start, let's say C, F, G, A minor. So I'm going to play the same rhythm again. Now I've just used 4 chords, and because they're closely related, because I've not strayed too far from home, I've kept to my neighbour's strategy. That means that I've actually created a really successful, even though it's simple, a successful and pleasing to the ear chord progression. So for those of you who want to know the names of these keys, each key has a particular name. So if I chose my home key as D major, remember we call it the tonic. G major in this case, because it's slightly it's to the left of D, is actually our subdominant. B minor, opposite, okay, remember it's across the street. B minor is our relative major, and A major, just to the right, is our dominant. So we use these chords, and they're called the primary chords, the tonic, subdominant, relative minor, and dominant. We use those in our chord progressions most commonly because they sound really good together. Whereas if I was to use chords which are completely, unrelated, so for example, if I went from D major and I went all the way across to E flat, if I just play that, E flat major, so D major, E flat major, sounds weird. I'm not going to be using that. And the reason why is that they're far away from each other. Using closely related neighbour keys helps us to create successful chord sequences. So I'm just going to play you a short part of this this video. It's called the 4-chord song. It's by Axis of Awesome, and they use the same 4 chords to demonstrate how these primary chords are used in pop music. They are the most used chords in pop music because they sound good. So here's a few examples.
Recognise this?
Yeah, that's Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
And the cast of Glee. Yeah, there's a few more songs with the same chords. Check it out.
My life is brilliant, my love is pure. I saw an angel, of that I'm sure. People kill and people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? Won't you turn the other cheek? Forever young, I wanna be forever young. I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm your lipstick stains on the front lobe of my left side brains. I knew I wouldn't forget you if I could. Then I would. I'd go wherever you will go. Can you feel the love tonight? Nobody wants to see us together, but it don't matter, no. 'Cause I got
country
you.
road, take me home to the place where I belong.
I'm your biggest fan, I'll follow you until you love me. Papa, paparazzi. I can't live with or without you. Pictures of you see. And she will be loved. Yeah, she will be loved.
So what we're going to do is I'm just going to finish it there. It is like 6 minutes long. But if you want to listen to the rest of it, if you just go to YouTube and type in Axis of Autumn 4-chord song, it's a great example of how those 4 chords, the tonic, subdominant, relative minor and dominant, are all used in pop music. So moving on, your task now, using the neighbour strategy, so using your home next door and across the street, I would like you guys to create a chord sequence using 4 chords. So you should be using your home key, so the tonic, your subdominant, your dominant, and your relative minor to create a chord sequence. Please don't go far from home. Remember, don't use keys which are far apart on the circle of fifths. You should be using ones which are close together. If you have an instrument at home and you can practice these chords, then have a go. Try and work out what chords work best for you. You could be adventurous if you wanted to. So the extension task is, if you want to be more adventurous, go next door twice and see where it takes you. So that means, for example, if I was starting with F, like I've circled, F's my home key, I could go B flat and then E flat, actually. So I'm going to go B flat, E flat, and then maybe G minor, and then I'm going to go F. So you can stray into other keys, but don't go completely on the opposite side of the circle. Don't go to keys which are unrelated. Make sure you don't go far from home. If you're unsure what I mean by that, just rewind and have another listen. Have a look at where I've circled the home keys and in what order I put them in. So just have a go, see how far you get. Pause the video now whilst you work it out. Now, writing a song. The task for you guys this week in your workbooks is actually to write a song. Now, for some people, writing a song comes first when you write the lyrics. Well, actually, for some people, you write the chords first, which is why I wanted to do a session on chords. But for those of you who, for the lyrics come easier, then I'd like you guys to think of a subject which you're passionate about, or a story that you want to tell. It might be that you've seen something on the news which you want to sing about or you want to write about. Remember, not all songwriters are singers. Songs are expression of who you are. It's like art, but using sound. So if you like starting with the words, then choose something that means something to you and then go from there. If you like starting with the chord sequence, then start with the chords and see where that takes you. See how the chord sequence makes you feel. What does it remind you of? Unless you have an instrument at home, you should try and write the lyrics first. Okay, so you should be doing this. I mean, it would probably take me at least half an hour to write a decent song with a decent chord progression. So see what you come up with. I would like you guys to make sure that you have at least 2 verses and a chorus. So it would be verse, chorus, verse, and then obviously a chorus. But the choruses are the same. So you only need to write 3 things essentially. Have a go and see how far you get. I just wanted to finish with a quick quiz. So what we normally do is we would have the chat running, but this is just for you guys at home. So if you wanted to have a go at this, what is a triad? What is a chord? What do we call the 3 individual notes that make up a chord? Why is the circle of fifths useful in composing? And I'd like you guys to finish this lyric here. So you've got new job, new city, knew her, bright-eyed, you would have been proud if you knew her. And the idea is that you use this as inspiration and you can finish off the lyric. There is no right or wrong, but it needs to be appropriate. So the most appropriate one would get a point. So I just wanted to finish off by saying well done. You've all done super, super well today. Send me your songs. It would be amazing to hear some of them. So if you can send me an audio, you can show me your lyrics if you take a photo. Send that to n.steaggles@charteracademy.org.uk. And I suppose the last thing that I need to say is well done. Really well done today, guys. You've done super, super well. I just wanted to leave you with one little thing. So the lyric which I posted in that quiz is actually from a song called Perfect Way to Die by Alicia Keys. Please Google it, have a look on YouTube. It's such a good song. I think it's a really good example of an imaginative, moving song. I've also posted a link on there, which is for the online pianist, for the virtual piano. If you guys fancy trying out your chord sequences and you don't have a piano at home, online pianist is a perfect way of trying those out from any device. So please use it. Well done. Take care.